So let's explain this thing. Some context might be required before I really start going into this, and it's how descendants and siblings work in my story. When a character dies, I'm going to be using Optimus as an example, their spark will return to the Allspark. The spark is then broken down into its core spark energy, which is then reused to create new sparks. And that is how you get descendants. That's how Optimus Primal is the descendant of Optimus Prime. That's also how you get siblings. These two characters would be siblings, and Optimus and Ultra Magnus are, their sparks are from the 13th Prime, which we'll get to later. Now, I call this Sparkcessors. It's a portmanteau of Spark and Successor. So Optimus Primal is the Sparkcessor of Optimus Prime. Another small piece of information: if a character is a Sparkcessor of a Prime, when they get the Matrix leadership, if they're worthy, they become a Prime. That's completely normal. That's any character. But if they are a Sparkcessor of a Prime, when they lose the Matrix, they remain a Prime. So we'll get to more of that later. So this might be quite messy. I'm not very good at keeping track of things, and this does go all over the place. It's not like there's one straight line. So I'll try and keep on track as much as possible. I'm going to start with Optimus and his sort of lineage, though. So we sort of start with the 13th Prime. Any with a blue at the top, that's one of the 13ths. I put that there when I was going to make it more obvious about what things were, but that ultimately didn't end up happening. He dies, and he is spark-cessed into three characters: Orion Pax, Scourge, and Ultra Magnus. Cover Scourge real quick. Later on, he gets corrupted and turns into Toxitron. Very simple. I don't really have a lot for Scourge, at least not right now. Orion Pax gets in a relationship with his workmate Ariel. They both get damaged, and they are rebuilt. Orion Pax stays as Orion Pax, whilst Ariel renames herself to Elita 1. Orion Pax later ends up on Earth and gets an Earth mode. I'm using the Alternity design because I just think it's neat. He gets the Matrix of Leadership. That's what this arrow here is. If any dotted arrow means something is passed to a character. So he gets the Matrix of Leadership. Who from we'll cover later. And becomes Optimus Prime. Now there's a lot of things leading off from Optimus here. You could see that him and Elita do later on get married. I just think that's neat. I think, if certain characters, if they adapt human culture, I just think that's an interesting place to take that. If Optimus can play basketball and Bumblebee can, play human video games, I think they can get married. I think that's pretty cool. This is Optimus's sort of super mode, Dark Energon sort of super mode that I've explained before. From the Matrix. Should probably quickly mention, basically none of this is going to be in chronological timeline order. I'm just going off of what I see at a certain time. I guess I'll go up here. At one point, Optimus sort of interacts with the Enigma of Combination, and he combines with 4 other dudes: Prowl, Mirage, Windcharger, and Sideswipe into Optimus Maximus. But you can see there's another arrow here, which is Nexus Prime. The mixture of the Enigma of Combination and Matrix of Leadership allows Nexus Prime to take over this body. So it's his consciousness taking over the combined form. This is also a temporary combined form. They don't have the ability to turn back into this. I think I want them to turn back into it one more time afterwards, which is why I have Prowl here instead of Jazz, since this is based off of the Masquerade, but I swapped Jazz out for Prowl because the second time I want to use this combined form, I want to use Jazz for something else, and I don't want to change the combining team. I guess I can quickly cover the other ones here. We got Prowl, who is a Sparkcessor of some character, I don't know, but Smokescreen and Bluestreak are also Sparkcessors of that character, making them brothers. Prowl is also cloned into a character called Silverstreak. I know, like, really it should be Blue Streak, but I made it Prowl because I wanted these specific clone characters to be clones of members of the Elite Guard, and Blue Streak is not a member of the Elite Guard. I guess I should quickly touch on the colours. Anything blue means they're a Spark Successor, anything red means it's relationship related. Over to Sideswipe. You can see he's a Spark Successor of some character, and so is Sunstreaker, making them brothers. Sunstreaker has 2 clones, Cordon and Spinout, and Sideswipe has 2 clones, Tiger Tracks and Deep Cover. Now the reason for these clones is, I think, something pretty cool. They are basically an experiment to try and basically save characters from the dead. So as you can see here, Sideswipe dies, then his consciousness is basically planted inside of Deep Cover, which basically mutates Deep Cover into a new Sideswipe. So it's weird. I like it. It does kill Deep Cover in the process, and that's sort of why the whole thing is shut down, ultimately. But moving back down to here, where is a good place to go? Probably up here. The Matrix is cloned using energy from Unicron and Rung. It is forced to do it by Overlord. Overlord then gives the Matrix of Chaos, is what I'm sort of calling it, to Hot Rod, who is specifically not a Spark Successor of one of the 13, because he reverts back to Hot Rod later after becoming Rodimus. He becomes Rodimus Unicronus, and then he loses the Matrix of Chaos. It goes into Autobot containment, reverts back to Hot Rod, gets the Matrix from Optimus, turns into Rodimus, gives it back to Optimus later, and reverts back to Hot Rod. Over here, in the process of it being passed from Optimus to Hot Rod, the Anti-Prime emerges from the Matrix, the Anti-Prime just being a build-up of Dark Energon within the Matrix. And when Hot Rod becomes Rodimus, it changes form into looking more like Rodimus. Optimus, at one point, actually I'll go across this line, he is cloned, also with Megatron, that should say cloned, in this sort of clone of Optimus and Megatron, Gilthor, or Giltor, however it's pronounced, made by the Quintessons, and that clone information is used by the Decepticons to make a clone of Optimus. They use to try and trick the Autobots. Doesn't work. He is given the Matrix of Chaos by Sideways, who's pretending to be an Autobot at the time. I don't have a visual example of what he looked like before being corrupted by Unicron. And he becomes Nemesis Prime, who later gets the Matrix of Chaos sort of removed from him. I probably should have put that here, but I've run out of space. And becomes General Optimus later on in the story. And I think that's every arrow coming off of this Optimus. He dies. He dies in a battle with Galvatron after killing Unicron. And later on is revived. As you can see here, there's an arrow coming from Rung. Rung revives Optimus, killing himself in the process. I guess I should explain Rung. Rung is what I'm calling a Primus Master. Basically, he can channel Primus's energy, unlike IDW where he literally is Primus. And there's another thing here I forgot to mention. Rung replaces the core of the Ark with himself, basically giving the Ark the ability to transform, and he uses it as like a mech suit to fight the Nemesis, which they put a protoform at the core of the Decepticons put a protoform at the core of the Nemesis, which basically turned it into this giant mindless beast. Optimus, gets revived, and he's in this new Star Convoy design. Rodimus gives the Matrix back to him, but Optimus later, after the war's over, he gets rid of the Matrix. I don't know where it goes at that specific point. A bunch of stuff does happen at this point in the story, but nothing that I can be visually displayed here. Other than the very end, where Optimus gets the power of the Underbase and becomes a cosmically powered Optimus Prime, and uses that ability to revive Unicron for reasons, because he's a black hole that's going to destroy the universe. I'll probably get to the rest of that later. So yeah, he dies at that point. and his spark is split off into 3. He gets 3 spark successors, potentially 4 if I add Big Convoy. I'm not sure if I will or not. You get Optimus Primal, Lio Convoy, and this is a design I'm just using as a stand-in. This is just Fire Convoy. I will probably leave that there for now and return to it later. Where's a good place to go? Probably, yeah, let's go Magnus. Solus Prime, who is in a relationship with Megatronus, creates the Apex armor, gives it to the 13th. That's sort of his thing. Of course, he dies, so he doesn't have the Apex armor forever. It goes somewhere and then eventually ends up in the hands of Ultra Magnus, which then gives him this armored form. Ultra Magnus is cloned and his armor is cloned, which is given to this clone, which gives you this. This clone being part of the same thing as like these clones. Ultra Magnus dies, and so the Apex armor is put to like storage or something, I don't know, and goes to one of his successors. Here you've got Minimus Ambus, who gets the armor, and I will leave that for later. Let's go to Megatron. That's probably a good place to go. Megatron is specifically not a spark successor of one of the 13th. I wanted to leave him separate. Got normal Megatron. He's got his powered up antimatter form, which is inspired by Megatron X. Of course, the Giltor clone. And then a normal clone, which is like has his ambitions removed or something. He gets an Earth mode after sort of switching sides to the Autobots before getting killed by Megatron. Of course, Megatron is corrupted by Unicron and becomes Galvatron. He does a little bit of time traveling, ends up in the future, then ends up in the past and becomes the Beast Wars Galvatron, before ending up in like the early parts of the story is this design. Then he gets frozen in ice, and eventually the Quintessons break him out and he becomes Super Megatron, where he gets into a relationship with Thunderblast. He ends up damaging Thunderblast like really, really badly, and that sort of puts him in this mindset. He sort of starts to realize what's actually happening. He eventually sort of goes on his own for a while, becomes sort of a rogue, joins the mercenaries, teams up with the Autobots for something, I'm not entirely sure what yet, before ultimately joining the Autobots and scanning in Earth mode, and then dying at some point. Let's go with Unicron. So Unicron was, of course, before this, he was an astral being, like his brother Primus, created by the One. Of course, Primus later becomes the Cybertron. I would have linked Primus to like everyone else, but then there'd be arrows all over the thing. The One also created the Underbase, which is how it had the ability to revive Unicron. And then this is sort of what the One looks like to Cybertronians. He looks different, or it looks different, I suppose. It looks different depending on what species is viewing it. So Unicron corrupts a load of different things. You know, he corrupts the Insecticons into the Sweeps, Thundercracker and Skywarp into Cyclonus and Scourge. He is defeated, becomes just a head. He's not dead though. He does get a new body and becomes this sort of more Energon-inspired design before being killed and collapsing into a black hole, which is when Optimus needs to revive him into Unicron again. He collapses into a black hole because you can't have you can't have Primus without Unicron. You can't get rid of Chaos but keep Primus stability, whatever the opposite of Chaos is, before eventually he is killed along with Primus, and that basically ends the Cybertronian lineage. This is probably the lowest point, like the end point on the timeline on this list. A little bit more would happen after it, but eventually every single Cybertronian dies, and that's basically the end of the story. Every Seeker is a clone of Redwing. Redwing is the spark successor of someone, I don't know, but so is Slipstream and Shockwave. Shockwave originally looked like this before sort of mutating his body into this, to try and lower his emotions. Not completely get rid of them, but lower them. Some experiments that Shockwave did was turning the Insecticons into beast formers. These are, I don't know who made these, but these are like vehicle modes for the Insecticons. I think they work pretty well. He corrupted them specifically using insectoid DNA. I'm calling these insectoids. I'm not sure if that's actually a real term or not. But basically the prime Insecticons are these beasts on Cybertron. They don't know they have the ability to transform, but later that would be revealed that they do. He did a similar thing with the Dinobots here, but using Predacon DNA, and turned them into the beast Dinobots, the dinosaur modes. Then they rip themselves apart and fuse them back together into the Beast. Eventually they are put back to their normal forms. I prefer the Beast to Volcanicus, I just think it's better. And then moving back down to Starscream, he dies and becomes the Ghost before getting a new body as Machine Wars Starscream, before dying again and getting a new body. I'm using Cybertron Starscream as a stand-in. I don't know if that's the design I actually want to use or not. He gets the power from the Underbase and becomes a cosmically powered Starscream before being completely burnt out by it and dying. So what haven't I covered? I think it's just sort of Sparkcessor stuff now, right? So I suppose we can go over here. This might be a good place to start. After Optimus gets rid of the Matrix, it ends up in the hands of a human named Jinrai, who basically gets the ability to turn his truck into a mech suit and then turn the trailer into a mech suit and then combine with this thing into this thing. Now I don't know if I want Apex Bomber / God Bomber to be an individual or a drone like it was originally. I don't know. But he dies, and we will get back to this section later because this happens a little bit later in the timeline. I want to keep some level of consistency. Here is Optimus Primal. He gets a beast mode when he lands on Earth. He gets the Matrix from this Predacon that's on Earth guarding the Matrix, who got it from Alpha Trion, who got it from Primer. And he becomes Optimal Optimus. And he is the one who gives the Matrix to Orion Pax. He returns to Cybertron a little bit later. He's just sort of regular Autobot agent at that point. I should say the Maximals are not the descendants of the Autobots. They are a sub-faction of Autobots in the future, probably under the command of Diatlas. I originally wanted them to be under the command of Starsaber, but I think putting them a little bit later on in the timeline works better. But Optimus Primal, you can see there's no normal Transmetal form here. Thinking about it, I'm not sure. But Optimus becomes under the will of the Oracle, which I'm thinking will probably be some that thing from Call of the Primitives. I think it'd be cool if that was the Oracle, because basically it's actually an evil force. It's trying to eradicate Cybertronians and restore, quote unquote, restore Cybertron to being organic. When in reality it's not good. It's not a good thing. It's tricking Optimus Primal into thinking he's making a perfect Cybertron. But eventually that's revealed to not be the case, and he's purged of his beast form and becomes this Transtech form. And then later on, he's infused with Predacon DNA. I'm not entirely sure how or why that happens. I don't think I want it to be willingly. And he gets his beast mode back, but he's much more powerful, before eventually dying. I'm not sure how he dies, but I know that I want him to die. Lyo Convoy, he lands on Earth and becomes a beast former. Pretty standard stuff. And you might have seen up here that Alpha Trion, his Sparkcessor is Cheetor. Now this takes a long time to happen. He doesn't get Sparkcessor for a very long time. I should probably, I should have put dead here, but I forgot. I don't have space now, so it doesn't matter. Alpha Trion dies very early in the story, like right as the war starts. But Cheetor doesn't become forged until much, much later, like after the war. So, just sometimes it can take a very long time. But Cheetor is made, and then he lands on Earth and gets beast mode. He gets his Transmetal form, returns to Cybertron, then returns to Earth with Lyo Convoy, which is when he gets his Transmetal 2 form. Then returns to Cybertron, gets his Techno-Organic form, realizes that the Oracle is deceiving Optimus Primal, and gets his Transtech form. And then later on, he gets the Predacon upgrade. He gets the Matrix from an unknown source and becomes Alpha Trizer. And I think he's the one who decides to ultimately kill Unicron and Primus. I think it's basically just this left, isn't it? So you've got Fire Convoy, gets the Matrix from Jinrai's dead body. I do think that's what I want to do. And becomes Fire Prime, who has this upgraded form. And he can combine with his cousin. Probably still going to call him God Magnus. Maybe I'll take a cue from God Bomber and call him Apex Magnus. I'm not sure. But you can combine with him to form Omega Prime. And he gets rid of the Matrix, ending up somewhere, and then it ends up in the hands of Cheetor. And I think that's everything. I think so. There's one thing I want to do, and that's quickly go over the Matrix and how it gets passed down. Oh, no, hold on. I missed Megatron getting Sparkcessed. Hold on. So Megatron's Spark Successor is Tarn, and the weird way, this is quite interesting, I think. So Megatron gets Spark Successed and basically becomes Protoform M, which is put on the Axodon ship, and then it ends up on Earth. It stays on Earth for a very long time before being uncovered by the Decepticons, where Six-Shot's corpse is used with it to form Megatron's perfect Decepticon. And then you find out that it's actually Beast Wars Megatron the whole time. So Beast Wars Megatron is essentially responsible for him ending up on Earth in the first place. It's very, very odd. But I really like it. I think it's cool. He gets his Transmetal form, and then he uses parts from these two Predacons, who are Guardians of the Matrix. Actually, specifically, these ones are probably Guardians of the Transwarp Key, which is what they used to get to Earth in the first place. I think that would be interesting. And he becomes his Transmetal 2 form, and then he becomes the Transtech form, and then he becomes his Predacon form using Predacon DNA. Becomes this massive dragon, I think. Now that's everything. Now I will go over the Matrix and just how it was passed from person to person. So of course Primus created it. I could probably link that over, but I don't really want to. It was in the hands of Primer, being the hilt of the Starsaber, before being split from the hilt and passed to Alpha Trion, who then passed it to this Predacon, who, I should say, they are not named, and they are not supposed to be the Dinobots. Maybe this sort of subspecies of Predacon is the DNA that was used to create the Dinobots, I don't know. But he then passes it to, I should say, he does not become a Prime. He just gives it to this Predacon. But he then passes it to Optimus Primal, who becomes this Optimal Optimus form, who stays on Earth and eventually passes it to Orion Pax, who becomes Optimus Prime, who passes it to, it's cloned and all, but whatever. He passes it to Hot Rod, who becomes Rodimus Prime, who then passes it back to Optimus. It then ends up somewhere, and then ends up in the hands of Jinrai. He dies. It ends up in the hands of Fire Convoy, who becomes Fire Prime, and then he passes it off to somewhere, and then it ends up in the hands of Cheetor, who becomes Alpha Tricer. I think that's pretty cool. Oh, I should say, this clone of Megatron, it's Megaplex. I don't think I said that earlier. It's Megaplex. But I believe that's everything that I've covered. Yeah, I think I've covered everything. I hope that made sense. It makes sense in my head. There's probably more stuff I could add here, like I'm contemplating a few stuff with Alita. I'm thinking of doing a similar arc to in Animated, where she becomes like Black Arachnia, but not actually the character Black Arachnia, who's a separate character in my story. I saw like someone use the term Alita Arachnia or something. But I think I'd want her to become a vigilante, similar to Spider-Man. Like, she has a helmet or whatever, a faceplate, and she does whatever. And then eventually I'm thinking of maybe she could become a Prime. I'm thinking of the name Ultima Prime. And then she could potentially combine with Optimus in his Star Convoy form. Which you might have seen an image of that I shared on Discord. I think that's everything I want to cover, though. There are definitely characters here who do die. Like, don't think that just because I haven't included the die that they don't die. Like, every single character here will die eventually, because every single Cybertronian dies at the end of my story. But all the ones where I haven't listed them as dead just means I haven't got an idea for how they actually die. I will say that just because they have dead doesn't mean they actually, like, I have an idea of how they die. Ultra Magnus, for example, I don't know how he's going to die, but I know he has to die for God Magnus and Minimus Ambus to exist. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it.